First tonight to the laws that have been labelled the modern version of the medieval stocks. State Parliament will debate the Prohibited Behaviour Orders bill next week, the latest step in the government's tough law and order agenda. The laws were introduced by the Blair Labor government in Britain 10 years ago, but the new Conservative government has moved to scrap them because they don't work. Moreover, the laws have been described as a conveyor belt to serious crime and prison. But the Attorney-General, Christian Porter, is confident that it will make a difference in WA. I caught up with him earlier. Christian Porter, welcome to Stateline.
Oh, pleasure, Eliza.
A 17-year-old who's regularly caught, say, urinating in public in weekends in Northbridge, is he going to be the type of person that's going to receive an order?
Well, I mean, it very much depends on who he is, precisely what he or she has done, and their criminal record.
Can I put to you something you said this week, which is similar along those lines? I think it would be unusual, if not amazing, this is a quote, if someone who had no criminal record but had committed 2 offences in 3 years would be given an order. But is that you saying, I'll rule it out?
Well, I mean, all of these things turn on the particular facts of the individual case, but the way we've structured the legislation is not merely must you have committed and been convicted of the 2 offences within 3 years, but also the court would have to be satisfied that unless they prohibit you from doing what would otherwise be lawful behaviour, you will offend again. My concern, I think, as I said yesterday with the legislation, is not that it would catch too many people and that there would be too many orders, but I would seek to review it to make sure that it's getting enough.
Why would that be a concern if you had too few?
Well, I don't want it to be so narrow that we're not picking up the people who are making trouble.
But it's not going to be you, is it? You know, the reasonable Attorney-General who's got all that wealth of knowledge. It's going to be a police prosecutor in a court, trying to instruct the judge. Wouldn't it be fair to think that this would be a great way for him to get somebody off the streets?
Look, let me say that the magistrates and judges are at least as reasonable as the Attorney-General. I mean, they'll be taking very moderately drafted, cautious legislation, applying it sensibly.
Now, I just want to look at the naming and shaming element, and you've made it clear this week in Parliament that you do advocate that happening, that reproducing of the information that's put on that government website. Do you advocate things like the wanted poster at the Carousel Shopping Centre, for instance?
What we have put in the legislation is that the judge has the discretion to publish these details.
But isn't it the whole notion of the rules that it's basically, you've been doing this consistently, everybody should know about it?
Indeed, and that's why I say that there's a presumption in favour of a judge ordering publication, but once the judge has ordered that it be published, which we expect in the majority of cases they will do, the Director of the Department of the Attorney-General must put it on a website, and we have specifically put in the legislation that there is ability to on-publish, but only the form of information, precisely as it is on the website.
And can you get it down after it's been unpublished?
I mean, as a matter of practice, I think that once information like that is out there, it is out there for some period of time. I mean, I accept that. But our concern has not been first and foremost with the individuals that are committing the offences that are causing huge problems in the local community. Our first and foremost concern is how does the community have an extra tool available to protect itself?
So they forfeit their rights, basically, if they've just been a repeat offender?
Well, they have obligations as well as rights.
Sure, I'll just put to you that Theresa May, the UK Home Secretary, Conservative Home Secretary, she said that she looked at 1 in 4 people sort of going to jail after they've breached the orders. There's a lot of facts here from the British situation that look like maybe that they're more harm than good for the community.
I've read that speech, and there's been various comments made about that speech as interpretations given to it.
How do you see it?
I think your interpretation's a bit better than some I've heard, but let me say that what the new Home Secretary has said is that she's reviewing the system.
Well, she's used some pretty big terms here. She's called it the laws were criminalising and coercive. Well, pretty serious.
But that's what the laws do. I mean, that's clear. What the laws do is they criminalise behaviour that in and of itself would not be criminal. But if I might say this about the UK system, what we've done is learnt about that system, what has been the better parts of that system, and try and adopt them to local circumstances. And what we've done is, I think, significantly different to the system that exists in the UK.
Well, how have you applied it to West Australian circumstances?
Well, what we've done is we've identified who are the troublemakers we're trying to target, and we've ensured that our system flows from criminal conviction. we will target the worst of the worst. And that's, I think, what the community really want to see out of this legislation.
OK, well, I mean, just staying in Britain, Theresa May said that, despite the Conservatives actually being elected on a law and order platform exactly like the Barnett government here, as you've argued this week, that their version wasn't working properly. So you're confident that you've made enough changes between what's happening there, which doesn't work, they say. You're confident they will work here for that core offenders?
I am. I'm not pretending that this is a silver bullet, but what we've identified is a clear group of people that we need to turn the attention of government policy on. That's what we're doing. I might also say about the UK Home Secretary that, of course, they have a problem that we don't have here, and that is a budget deficit which is 70% of their gross domestic product. And
it's unlikely for a Conservative government to pull away a very successful law and order program, despite that.
In fact, they're cutting their prison systems budget by 40% as well. I mean, everything's being cut by 40%, and this is something that's being reviewed and looked at. But also, that same speech, the Home Secretary over there talks about the possibility of replacing their system with something more direct, which you might read to mean something even firmer than what they have at the moment. And of course, once our legislation's in place, we will continually review it to see what its effect is. But at the moment, it's been very carefully designed to target the worst serial repeat offenders in the community on an antisocial behaviour level. And we're going to have a court being able to tell them that they can no longer do the things that they were doing. And if they breach that order, I would expect a result similar to that of the United Kingdom, where about half the people who breached the orders over there ended up with a jail sentence. And if half of these offenders end up with a jail sentence because they breach an order, that will be a win for community safety.
OK. Christian Porter, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Liza. Bye.